What you're about to witness is exclusive content from Studio1Tutorials.com. I wanted to take an opportunity to share with YouTube some of the types of tutorials that we do over at Studio1Tutorials.com. Studio1Tutorials.com is where I do 100% user requested content. YouTube is where we feed the algorithm. So today what we're looking at is a request from Instagram. This brother was hitting me up and he was asking me about a couple Isaiah Rashad songs, specifically in reference to the chords and the bass lines. So both of these songs had acoustic bass lines. The first thing that I did was I went and got the stems from RC20 RX8, and I drug the song up to chord track, and the first thing that I noticed when I drug it up to chord track is the first bit of movement is going from like F sharp minor to B minor. And when you use chord track like this, what I don't want you to do, and this is where so many of you guys bump your head into the wall and throw a fit. This is like, you're not going to drag a song up to chord track that has a whole bunch of instruments and then drag this back down and then get some MIDI and then it be like instantly in the vibe. Like, you got to listen a little bit more and to really understand what's going on. So this first part of the song, let's bring it back in, or maybe it's probably on this stem, but if we listen to it here. So if you listen to what's going on, like they're playing a higher octave, they're switching down into like a single note here. And what chord track is picking up is it's picking up on these notes here and the bass. But what you want to do when you get this information from chord track, to figure this kind of stuff out, is you want to grab your MIDI keyboard and you want to play it, right? So here's a B. Here's an F sharp minor on the stage 32, right? So if I'm looking at my hand, I see that I've got an F sharp, I've got an A as my third, and I got a C sharp as my fifth. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to look for this B, right? I'm going to wonder where this B is in relationship to this to like an F sharp minor scale. My third is A, right? So if I move over a whole tone, that's B, right? So the natural movement here, when I look at this, like just as writing chords, I'm knowing like, oh, okay, so this is a 1/4. You're going. Right? And if you do it the easy way, and you just say you were to just drag and drop this from the chord track, the reason why I like to look at it with my hands first is because you're going to get a better representation of the voicing, right? So if you look at these chords in the piano roll, you see where that B is. What I was doing, I was playing this inversion with the one down here. You see how when I play it over the instrument stem from the original song, nothing's clashing and it all makes sense. So basically what you could take away from that is, to build a song like this, is you can do it all with a 1/4 progression, right? And then to make it your own, you just come here and decide like, all right, so I'm going to make my own melody. I'll do something like this. I don't know. We'll do this. We'll step down here. And then we'll go. We'll leap into that, right? See what it sounds like. Right, we'll take these and strum them a little bit. Get a little bit of velocity going. So then from there you can go ahead and build your pattern, right? So we'll make this we'll make this kind of like the focal point of the beat. Look around, you don't like see you don't see a real chord change until you get here. So we'll address that once we get there. Boom, just duplicate that out. We'll duplicate our drums out. The drum kit that I used to get this sound was I used a what I used Jake Jordan. I used a Jake 1 Snare Jordan Volume 7. And the reason why I went there is because he does a really good job of like doing sample type acoustic drums, and all of these drums in order to get this vibe are going to be all acoustic sounds, right? So this is a hi-hat loop that I chopped the open hi-hat out of. This is just a sampled hi-hat, snare chop from the break, and a kick chop from the break. Get this sound. Kind of stiff. We don't have any swing on it, but we'll get there, right? So we got the important part. We got the drums, and we got the chords, and of course the MIDI for this is going to be on the lesson files folder in the Dropbox for all the members of StudioOneTutorials.com. So the next thing that we wanted to look at is the bass, right? So when it comes to these types of basses, I go for Trillion. I have Contact. I know everybody loves Rickenbacker bass because everybody goes out and buys Complete for the value, and people don't use Trillion because it's $300 on its own. Having said that, the Rickenbacker bass or the P bass, or just as long as you have a multi-sampled bass guitar, the Orange Theory bass guitars, any Contact bass that's multi-sampled, meaning that it has it's a multi-sampled modeled instrument, right? So one thing that you have to understand about live bass is that when you play it and when you program it, you need to do it in a way that a bass player would actually play it, right? And if you don't know any bass players or any musicians, that might be a little difficult. So I'll show you how I would have figured it out without knowing any musicians, right? But I already knew this from my friends. So when you look at this in Melodyne, right? The first thing that you want to understand when you look at something in Melodyne is that these little notes right here, that's this is just like noise from the frets and stuff like that. This is what you really want to pay attention to. If you look at this bass line, the first thing that you notice is that it's just 3 notes. If you're just listening to this and your ear isn't as astute yet. So what I like to do when I'm listening to bass like this is like I'll count the rhythm, right? So I'm listening, and it's going 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, right? So I can kind of count how many notes there are in the bass line. The other thing that I'm looking at here is, all right, so we're in we're in F sharp minor, right? We see this C sharp. If you look at your chord, right? F sharp minor, this C sharp is the fifth. So what you have to know, right, is that when bass players play their instrument, they're not going from like the one note in the scale to the sixth note in the scale. They usually just move between the one and the five note in the chord that's playing at the time. Um, and when they go to like turn it around at the end of a phrase, then they'll either walk up through the scale or walk down through the scale, right? And that's how you make a actual bass line. So it's easy when you have the MIDI in front of you, because like, okay, boom, we'll go into studio one in the piano roll. We'll put our scale, our scale lock on. We see that if we go 1, 2, 3, I'm sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we see that that's our fifth, right? So we're just moving down. If you want to go lower, we can go down an octave. And that's it. That's the bass line, right? So what you got to remember is if we look at our chords from the chord track, the reason, so why we're playing these notes, right? We're playing these notes because they're the 1 and the 5 of the chord. We're playing this note because it's the 1 of this chord. And that's how you move around. That's how you move around a chord progression on a bass line, right? So I'll show you, like, when we start to freestyle and stuff, this next section. So that's the song, right? That's the song that you're used to hearing, and that's as much of this song as we're going to use. If we go into this next section, this pre-hook, right? So now I need to come up with a bass line that matches these chords. So if I go back down to my piano roll, this is how I would start. Do a B, do a C sharp, F sharp, and a G, right? So let's listen. And then maybe here I'll just follow the kicks. All right, so this is going to be my rhythm for each one of these sections, right? So once you figure your rhythm out, then you could start dealing with your pitch. So I'm going to take this, go here, take this, go here, take this, and go here, right? And then, and then for these, I could take and just say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Because going up 7 notes is a fifth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, let's see. Hold up. Let's see how this is going to turn around. All right, so this section right here, it had like some type of strings. So I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna get some Selena strings. Cause Selena strings always sound good on rap beats, no matter what type of rap beat it is. All right, so this is what I was talking about, like those walk-ups. So we'll play within the scale, do something like this, switch it up. And then from here, you could take and adjust your chords. This preset that I'm about to put on this EP, you can get this at Studio One Tutorials /vintage, and a few more key sample maker presets in there. So like, let's see, here they had this little stop. Just trying to do this from memory now. I mean, it's not important to remake the beat. It's just to get the vibe right. But now that guitar that's on there, that is a real person playing an electric guitar. So you're gonna have you can have a problem getting that articulation with a computer. So you're just gonna have to hold that. Um, you could go on Fiverr and try to connect with a musician who is who will work with you on these. I don't know, like I don't. It all depends on how serious of a pursuit this are. Like if you're in a situation where you're working, then you go and you get the musician to help you out with this. It's gonna come out leaps and bounds better if you know someone in church or school or cousin, brother, friend, somebody. I mean, there's so many guitar players out there. Because if we listen what they did, like that picking, it's gonna be hard to emulate, right? Sound like that was going down to the 5-2. But you could do something like that, right? You just need to have a decent guitar plug-in to be able to carry it. And of course, you're gonna want to humanize that. Start the note range. Push this. No, I don't want to push it that way. I'll push it forward. There we go. A little bit of swing on it. What should we do here? Oh, I should have saved before I did this. This thing. Okay, cool. This thing takes what do we got? Give me something. And if I get, we just need a reverb on it. As a matter of fact, let's do. let's get some swing on these kicks. I'm going to go to the MPC 3000. Going to do 53%. And just highlight all these real quick. Make sure, oops. Oh. Sure, we want to freeze velocity. And then go ahead and quantize them. I got to tell PreSonus, their fucking velocity's messing up. Look at this. See how that switched me around? Be careful about that. These are supposed to be low velocity. Alright. Here you go.
My condom, meal ticket, meal ticket, comma, still in my liver, real niggas in my condom, feel hit me back, feel this one with a powder pack, pill bring me back, feel this one in California.
The flow is good, the hoe is good, the show is good, you know it's scrub. Cool as me out front, that can cool stoking folk, you know it's love. Cleanest EV, no head and shoulders, hoe, you know it's scrub. Shout out to my kid folk, just got on that Coca-Cola scrub. Watch my profile in my go-kart, this my get the weight is fuck. In my hood, we call it book. Fuck about what you think of me. All my hoes be nines and dimes. All she want is chicken grease. All you know is what your mammy taught you about the surface. Get your meal ticket, meal ticket, come up. Still in my liver, real niggas in my condom. Feel hit me back, feel this one with a powder pack. Pill bring me back, feel this one out in California. Meal ticket, meal ticket, come up. Still in my liver, real niggas in my condom. Feel hit me back, feel this one with a powder pack. Pill bring me back, feel this one out in California. No, it's meal ticket, come up. Still in my liver, real niggas in my condom. Feel hit me back, feel this one with a powder pack. Pill. Flow is good, the hoe is good, the show is good, you know it's scrub. Cool as me out front, that can cool stoking folk, you know it's love. Cleanest EV, no head and shoulders, hoe, you know it's scrub. Shout out to my kid folk, just got on that Coca-Cola scrub. Watch my profile in my go-kart, this my get the weight is fuck. In my hood, we call it book. Fuck about what you think of me. All my hoes be nines and dimes. All she want is chicken grease. All you know is what your mammy taught you about the surface. Get your meal ticket, meal ticket, come up. Still in my liver, real niggas in my condom. Feel hit me back, feel this one with a powder pack. Pill bring me back, feel this one out in California. Meal.
So that's the chords, that's the bass line. And then once you put the rapper on it, you see it's not that far off at all. So a couple things that you want to do when you make these type of beats. I listen to both the songs, bro. You want to make sure that you get good acoustic drum kits, sampled breakbeat type of drum kits. I personally think Jake One snare Jordan kits are the best for that sound. I mean, you hear how close it got on these sounds. I didn't even have to use synonym or nothing. I just did it with my ear, and it was, and it worked out. You want to use a bass patch that is from a live bass, that is a multi-sampled bass patch, not something from Nexus, not something from Expand, not something from, like a Motif sample pack, not a one shot. The reason why is because it's going to allow you to do more with the expression. There's different slides and different different pitch bends that you can use, that I didn't go over in this video right now, that'll give you a much more like realistic feel for this. Make sure that you add some swing and some velocity to all of your drums. I didn't show it here, but in my presets, you see this delay, like I always have this set to like 4 milliseconds off. So like my hi-hats are always just by default are pushed behind the beat. For something like this, I push them back a little bit more.
Meal ticket, meal ticket, come up, still in my liver, real niggas in my condom, feel hit me back, feel.
If you look at what I do with my snare, I bring it like ahead of the beat by 1 millisecond. My kick, I'll push that behind the beat 1 millisecond, and that just works really good with the swing. And then on top of that, with the bass, so that every percussion sound, when they hit, they're not hitting all at the same time on top of each other, like with a propensity to phase each other out. This will give them more space, and it'll make your drums it'll make your drums hit harder. You won't notice it right away, but if you make like 30 beats like this and you listen to the 200 beats that you made before you started doing this, you will notice the difference. When it comes to the chord progressions for this song, was a really simple progression, right? They did a simple, it was a 1/4, right? So F minor. Let's hear it here. F minor to B minor. And then it's just a matter of, using the inversion, voicing it, and then understanding that when you're doing a chord progression with keys, you don't have to just have these long block chords. Like you can, this can still be a B minor chord, but you don't have to use every note from the chord. You can just make a simple 2-note, walk up melody like this. Now, the only part where it gets a little tricky with these chords, I don't know if you picked up on this, but if we look, if we examine this real quick, right? So if we take and we look at like this pre-chorus section, you will notice that if we like as I scroll through it, these blue notes are the scale, right? So those are all in the scale. If we go to the 7th, you notice that we used instead of a C sharp minor 7, they used instead of the major 7, which would have been in the scale, would have been this note right here. They flattened it, right? So this is stuff that you're gonna have to kind of try out, right? Like that's why it makes sense to try to play the stuff. This was probably just felt better. And then if you notice here, right, we used another note that wasn't in the scale. They sharped the F sharp right here, and that's what gave this cool bridge feeling. So what you want to pay attention to, if you ever say you like this movement, right? This is what I would suggest you do. Say you enjoyed this movement. What you want to look at here is what are the fundamental notes, right? So this is a B minor, so you already know this is the 4 chord in the scale, right? So this is a B. the C sharp is the 5, so you're doing a 4, 5, right? And then and a 4 5 to a 1, right? So you're doing 4 5 1. That's common, right? 4 5 1. Those are your, that's your tonic, that's your cadence chords. And then the only little bit of flavor that you're throwing is instead of doing this chord like this, I'm sorry. Instead of doing something like this, where this you see how this chord sounds nasty like this, right? This is like some crazy diminished chord, right? So instead of using this, this is the 2 chord in the scale, right? So this is a 4 5 1 2, right? And all they did is, instead of using the 2 chord in the scale, in order to make this usable, they just flatten this, and now this becomes a minor chord instead of a diminished chord, and you get this. So if you want to use this progression is 4 5 1 2 with a flattened 2. All right. So you guys hit me up if you have any questions, and to everybody else, if you want to see more tutorials like this with type beats, specific questions that you can ask me, and we break them down in depth. We take the stems apart in the song, we find the actual drum samples that we're using, we put the acapella over it, and we make sure that we're good. This is what we do at studio1tutorials.com. It is 50 cents a day. You guys keep it simple, but do not be basic. And we will see you on the next one.